Hi, peace be upon you, folks. Today I'm going to talk about jinns or demons. This talk is a little inspired by the TV show Ancient Aliens. I had made a talk before about jinns and like a brief talk. It was part of another topic. And maybe in the future I'll do a more detailed talk on jinns. This talk is going to be a little bit structured a little bit differently from a talk that just talks about genes because the template or the inspiration is basically, like I said, a little bit from the TV show Ancient Aliens. Now, I do know what I want to say, but I do not know the best way to structure it. So I beg you to bear with me, and hopefully, I give you some beneficial information. Briefly on the creations of God. Now, the creations of God are vast. Even upon the earth, the species are plentiful. And scientists will tell you that uh, over like 80% of the species that ever existed, no longer exist. And yet, still, the ones that exist up to this day are plentiful. So, God is not limited in His creation, He's not limited in His power. And there's possibility there are other creatures in other planets, other prominent beings, other uh, human-like beings with intellect who go through developmental stages, technology, culture, and other things like that. That's possible because we can't limit God to our limitations, and basically on what we know. There are creations that exist in the heavens or in paradise. Now, in the Quran, God says He adorned the lowest heaven with lamps. He said He created the seven heavens and He inspired in each heaven its commands. So every heaven has its laws, basically. And He is the sovereign over those laws. That's one of the arguments, I think, for faith and for belief in God. Because the fact that there are laws that govern the universe and everything in existence means there's a sovereign above those laws. And God creates the laws and He's the sovereign above everything. So He said in the Quran that He adorned the nearest heaven, the lowest heaven, with lamps, with stars, the sun and the other stars. Some scholars have said the lowest heaven is the Milky Way galaxy, the nearest galaxy. But I think the whole universe, as we perceive of it, that is the lowest heaven, I think, because even the other galaxies are full of stars, lamps. It doesn't mean the other heavens don't have lamps. But what he said was He adorned the nearest heaven with lamps and He protected it. Now, like I said, the creations of God are vast. So in paradise, there are creations that have a human form. Even the 72 virgins that people have come to know about because of the suicide bombings and all that. These are human-like form beings with intellect, but they never had free will and they never lived on earth. So even the 72 virgins who are supposed to be like very beautiful and all that, the women of earth who were faithful and who did good deeds while they believed in God and they believed in the hereafter, and they did those deeds with intention of God's approval and His pleasure, there would be several degrees. Some teachings say 70 degrees more beautiful than those virgins, those huris they're called. So even though they are so beautiful and we can't perceive of it in this life, they're nothing compared to what the women who lived on earth faced temptation and had free will. They're nothing compared to how beautiful they would be. And God says in the Quran, the degrees in heaven are greater than degrees on earth. So in heaven there are several degrees in paradise. And some teachings tell you that between, let's say, for, it says that there are 100 degrees, and between each degree is like the distance from the earth to the heavens. So between each degree, it's imperceivable, you know. But the lowest degree and the poorest person in heaven has beyond what he can wish for, you know. It's beyond perception. It's not something we should try to dwell on, because God is all powerful. So there are creations of God that exist, but what we know of is those that have been given free will and those that interact with our earth, with our world. There are three that we know of. They are the angels, they are the jinns, and the mankind. Now, yes, there are beings that don't have free will, but maybe there are beings that have free will and human form and live on other star system or other galaxies. That's possible. We can't limit God to our limitations. But we've not had prophecies of those beings visiting us, but we've had prophecies of the jinns. So, for example, when people talk about extraterrestrials and aliens and talk about alien disclosure, we have prophecies in Islam that talk about jinns during the end times. So, but we do not have prophecies that talk about other life forms like extraterrestrials. So, I can safely say that these aliens that they think of are actually jinns, and I'll come to an argument for that. Now, it's necessary to understand that sometimes we speculate, and it's not good to speculate too much about things that you don't have knowledge of, and obviously it's wrong to argue just for the sake of argument and without knowledge, to argue just for the sake of bringing something down. So you have to always check your intentions and let the truth be the reason you seek a discourse, you seek a discussion. So when we speculate, it's good to neither reject nor accept. If it goes against reason, it goes against logic, or it goes against the scriptures that we can verify as truthful scriptures from God, then obviously we reject that. If it goes with it, it agrees with it, then we accept it. If it neither goes towards it, neither does it go against it, then we entertain it without accepting or rejecting it until we can have enough information later on in the future to decide whether to accept it or reject it. So, of the creations that interact with our earth, now the angels. The angels are basically the hands of God. They do God's will. They act as the forces of nature, carry out God's commands and bring his messages down. And sometimes they take human form on earth, because the angel doesn't come in his true form on earth. God says in the Quran, if there were angels walking securely upon the earth, he would have sent an angel as messenger, because some of the people would disbelieve and they say, why would God send a human being as messenger? And God always sends human beings as messengers because he was sending them to human beings. So angels are not walking securely upon the earth. And the true form of the angel, it's not something we can perceive of. That's why sometimes they tell you, like, even when they take the form of humans, when the Bible will say something like, if it comes to the prophet will fall down on his head, because the prophet feels the presence of God, even though this is not God. This is just something beyond his comprehension sometimes. So the angels God has made them differently. They are of different statuses, and you have the spirits, like the archangels and other spirits. They say there are 4 angels that carry the throne of God, and they say the 7 heavens and the earth, they're like a ring thrown in a desert when you compare the 7 heavens to the kursi. The kursi is what they call the footstool of God. Now the footstool also, they say, it's like a ring thrown into a desert when you compare it to the throne of God. So that's how much larger the throne is than the kursi, and that's how much larger the kursi is than the 7 heavens. And yet we know that the 7 heavens are at least as big as the universe. And the universe is huge, but it's nothing compared to the throne of God. Now they say there are four angels who carry this throne, and on the day of judgment, there will be eight angels who carry this throne. So this gives you an idea that these are angels that one of them can probably can carry the whole universe alone, and that would be no big deal. That would be a simple task. So these are things you can't comprehend. These are powerful beings. God needs just to send one or two in a town, and he can destroy the whole town in a matter of seconds. And God doesn't even need to send them. It can just be one shout, and that town can be overturned. There will be earthquakes, and there will be sinkholes and everything. So those are the angels. Now the genes, they were made from fire. We were made from clay. Whether you talk about Adam's first creation in paradise, or you talk about the primordial soup, we were made from earth. Even the fact that we have, mostly carbon, that should tell us we're made from earth. Now, the genes, they were made from flame, and they also have a different anatomy than we do. But they're not like angels. They have free will. Angels don't have free will. So an angel cannot fall. An angel cannot be a demon like, some of the Christians say. Because if you don't have free will, you can't disobey God. And God can't, and it makes sense because God will not have basically his police or his hands that they have free will and they can disobey him. They don't. And they're very righteous. They're very pious, But the genes, like human beings, have got free will. And they existed before human beings did, and they existed on the earth before human beings did. The Quran also said, like, when the revelation started with the prophet, some of the genes sought the heavens, because sometimes they would go to the heavens, I think up to maybe to the edge of the first heaven, and they would try to listen to the angels, and they would try to get some information when the angels discuss about certain decrees that God has decreed. But when they sought the heavens, they found it well protected, and they were being stoned with flames, like comets or stuff like that. So they found it well protected, and they started wondering, they started speculating, like, what God intends for the people of earth that he has protected the heavens so much.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل أوحي إلي أنه استمع نفر من الجن فقالوا إنا سمعنا قرآنا عجبا يهدي إلى الرشد فآمنا به ولن نشرك بربنا أحدا وأنه تعالى جد ربنا ما اتخذ صاحبة ولا ولدا وأنه كان يقول سفيهنا على الله شططا وأنا ظننا أن لن تقول الإنس والجن على الله كذبا وأنه كان رجال من الإنس يعوذون برجال من الجن فزادوهم رهقا وأنهم ظنوا كما ظننتم أن لن يبعث الله أحدا وأنا لمسنا السماء فوجدناها ملئت حرسا شديدا وشهبا وأنا كنا نقعد منها مقاعد للسمع فمن يستمع الآن يجد له شهابا رصدا وأنا لا ندري أشر أريد بمن في الأرض أم أراد بهم ربهم رشدا.
Then while they found out that, God directed them to the prophet. And it's not like God will say, hey, you go there. But it's like when you read, for example, the Bible or the Gospel of Thomas, and it says, it talks about the dominion of God and the sovereignty of God. And it says it's like a woman who baking a bread and leaves something in there. Basically, what the idea is, when God has dominion over everything, and things seem natural when God does them. It's not like every time God works, it's like when the prophets were allowed to perform the miracles by God's permission. So, for example, you can have the creation of a baby from a sperm drop up to like 9 months, and you get a in the fetus, and you get a baby, but basically from a cell, you know. Or you can have it from the first. You can have the first creation of human being from the first DNA from the primordial soup, and have that DNA grow into a single cellular organism up to or the stages of evolution, as they say. So God is not limited in His creation, and He can carry out a task at a certain period, and He can slow down that task or speed up that task. But basically, He shows us that how He brings things from their simplicity to their complexity, and it seems natural because that's how God works. So when God works, sometimes you can ask for God for something, and then you know another person's heart, somebody, God maybe planted something in their heart that they decided to do something nice, and you find out that that person did something nice for you that you were asking God for. So God works in, as they say, the Christians say sometimes, in mysterious ways. But basically, God has dominion over everything. So God directed these genes to the prophet, and they heard him reciting the Quran, because Quran means recitation. And like it's like the Bible says, like, he shall speak in my name. And the first thing that was told to the prophet is recite. And everything he recites, he says, in the name of God, the most merciful, merciful to all, and especially merciful to the believers. So he recites only what he hears. He doesn't speak of his own accord. So, but basically, God led these genes towards the prophet's recitation, and they heard it, and they're like, "Huh, this is probably it." And I think they were Jewish genes, because they followed the law of Moses. Because when they heard the recitation, they went back and told their people. They said, "We've heard the recitation like that was revealed to Moses, and it guides to the straight path, basically." So, but the idea I want to get to is the fact that, yes, there were times when these genes were allowed, they could move around in the universe, not just on Earth. So we don't know what other planets these genes can inhabit. We don't know that, but it's possible they inhabit other planets. So it's possible they can present themselves as extraterrestrials, aliens. But in Islam, there is what we call the seen world and the unseen world. The seen world, these are things we can see. Human beings belong to the seen. The unseen, like the heavens, the paradise that we can't see, the genes, the angels that we can't see, those are the unseen. So the genes also belong to the unseen world for human beings. And sometimes it's about our sense perception. They say we don't even use 10% of our brains, you know. So we can't even see things outside a certain small range of the electromagnetic spectrum. We can't hear, certain wavelengths. So we are very limited in our senses, in our perceptions in this life. So genes belong to the unseen world for some reason. There are also things about vibration that brings, even matter. Sometimes the galaxies can collide, yet they do not cause each other certain interactions. So even matter can react with each other without any sense perception. So it's possible these genes have mass actually, but the mass doesn't react with our mass in a way that we can sense it, until maybe they have some technology that they can cause certain vibrations. But the idea is, uh, the genes are in the unseen world. It doesn't mean they see the angels. No, they don't have that kind of what do you say, quality. Like, they're not like the angels at all. They're nothing like the angels. The angels are a lot more powerful. Now, Satan, people thought he was an angel. He wasn't an angel. He was a jinn. He had free will, so he disobeyed God. When they said to bow to Adam, and it wasn't a bow to pray to Adam, because you do not pray to anybody except God. You know, but after God breathed His spirit into Adam, His created soul, then He asked them to prostrate to Adam, to serve Him in a certain way. And Satan refused, because he said he was better than Adam, because he was created from fire. He said, "How can I bow to something you created from mud? I'm better than this one." But Satan had the Iblis, is called, the one they call Lucifer. he had a thing where amongst the genes he was righteous, but God always knows. Like even somebody who gives out alms, he gives out charity. God knows what's in your heart and what's in your intentions, what your intentions are. So sometimes if there's pride in your heart, God hates that for his creations, that they should be proud, they should be arrogant. Sometimes people will see you as, oh man, such a good guy, but God knows what's in your heart. He knows there's pride in your heart. So Iblis, the Lucifer, he had certain relationship with the angels because he was perceived to be righteous. You know, he would interact with them, hang out with them, that kind of a thing. But then, once his arrogance was displayed, God, he fell basically. God lost his status. But he was never an angel. Angels can't disobey God because they don't have free will. But what you have to see here is Satan thought he was better than man. And so all the genes that follow him and rebel against God, hence they're called devils or demons, they all think they're better than man and they have certain arrogance. And they have a hierarchy. But they have certain arrogance. And their vow is to lead man astray. This was Satan's vow towards God. He said, by your might, I would lead them all astray, except those who faithfully follow your way, the way of all the prophets. That was not to associate anything with God. That was the way of all the prophets. None of the prophets said, this is like God, this is another thing like God. There are three of them who like have divinity and they share Godhead. No, all the prophets worship one God. Even these Eastern religions, most of them believe there is a supreme God, but they've come to take some of the angels or think they take the angels as gods. But that's just the Satan leading them astray. Now I give you the story of Moses. When Moses had freed the Israelites, they were traveling in the desert, and then Moses went up the mountain to speak to God, basically. And it's not to be understood. Yes, Moses was the prophet God spoke to directly, but when God speaks to a prophet directly, it's not like there's no covering between them. There can be several coverings between them. How I understand these coverings, for example, is if you speak into a mic, it goes through certain electronic devices, certain junctions before it reaches the speakers. So you can manipulate sound waves, and have them come out of a speaker. So you can see those as coverings so that your speech is not directly to the human being, because a human being cannot stand the speech of God directly. It's not like God is like a form with a mouth and teeth and tongue, So you should not understand it in that way. We can't really perceive God in that sense, since we can't even perceive some of his creations. And God has created all the forms. So it's not like a form that you can say he's sitting there, he's standing there. Even when they say God is above the throne, we don't ask how, because you don't ask how with God. It's just is. And he's above the throne because the throne is above all creation, and God is above all the creation. His being is above all the creation. He's the sovereign above everything. So, yeah, but anyway, Moses went to talk to God and he left them down the mountain. Right? So the Samiri, I think the Samaritan or something, he enticed the people to create a calf, or create a bull and to worship it. And he told them, this is your God and the God of Moses. But Moses forgot. Then when God spoke to Moses, he said, why did you rush away from your people? He said, oh, I came so that you'll be pleased. And God said, well, we've tried your people and you left. And they've taken the calf for worship. And Moses came and he was, disappointed. And he asked the Samiri, it's like, why, what's your status? Why would you do this? And he said, he saw what the people didn't see. He saw the footstep of the messenger. So some scholars have understood this that he saw maybe the footstep of the angel Gabriel, maybe, So he took that from that footstep and he put it within the gold that they made the calf with, so that it could be like a sacred thing and it could be the God.
يا بني إسرائيل قد أنجيناكم من عدوكم وواعدناكم جانب الطور الأيمن ونزلنا عليكم المن والسلوى كلوا من طيبات ما رزقناكم ولا تطغوا فيه فيحل عليكم غضبي ومن يحلل عليه غضبي فقد هوى وإني لغفار لمن تاب وآمن وعمل صالحا ثم اهتدى وما أعجلك عن قومك يا موسى قال هم أولئك على أثري وعجلت إليك رب لترضى قال فإنا قد فتنا قومك من بعدك وأضلهم السامري فرجع موسى إلى قومه غضبان أسفا قال يا قوم ألم يعدكم ربكم وعدا حسنا أفطال عليكم العهد أم أردتم أن يحل عليكم غضب من ربكم فأخلفتم موعدي قالوا ما أخلفنا موعدك بملكنا ولكننا حملنا أوزارا من زينة القوم فقذفناها فكذلك ألقى السامري فأخرج لهم عجلا جسدا له خوار فقالوا هذا إلهكم وإله موسى فنسي أفلا يرون ألا يرجع إليهم قولا ولا يملك لهم ضرا ولا نفعا ولقد قال لهم هارون من قبل يا قوم إنما فتنتم به وإن ربكم الرحمن فاتبعوني وأطيعوا أمري قالوا لن نبرح عليه عاكفين حتى يرجع إلينا موسى قال يا هارون ما منعك إذ رأيتهم ضلوا ألا تتبعني أفعصيت أمري قال يا ابن أم لا تأخذ بلحيتي ولا برأسي إني خشيت أن تقول فرقت بين بني إسرائيل ولم ترقب قولي قال فما خطبك يا سامري قال بصرت بما لم يبصروا به فقبضت قبضة من أثر الرسول فنبذتها وكذلك سولت لي نفسي.
But the point I want to get from that story is, as soon as a prophet leaves, even when a prophet is around, Satan tries to bring doubts in the people and he tries to go against that message immediately. You know, we don't see how much effort they put in because we don't see their world. God says in the Quran that Satan and his tribe, they see you from where you do not see them. You know, so they're always looking, they're always waiting to lead man astray. They're not slacking in that. Just because we're chilling, we're relaxing, we think, nobody's doing work in the other world, But they're doing real work. They're struggling hard. And it's not because they're not leaders of hell. They're not going to be caretakers of hell. They're going to be punished in hell. Satan doesn't like hell. He just hates mankind. That's all. You have a lot of wrong misinformation in the media. People talk about Satan is the keeper of hell. He's not the keeper of hell. He's going to be punished in hell. He just hates mankind so much that he's willing to go to hell as long as he brings a lot of mankind with him. And the jinns, they're not all bad. Let me just put that forward. Some of them are Muslims, some of them are good Christians, some of them are good Jews, or Hindus or Buddhists. But they're plentiful more than the human beings. And the angels are plentiful more than the jinns. A lot more plentiful, So they can carry out a lot of work that, you would think, oh, it's just a few here, a few there. But there's so many of them and they work in persistently. Now, another story. Let me talk another story about Moses. The people of Egypt during the time of Moses, and even before that time and after, they took pride in their magic. This was a big deal. So when God sent the miracles, it was for the people to believe. But then you would think, some people tell the story about the snake from Moses, and they say the snake ate up the other snakes that the magicians conjured. But the story is not accurate in that sense from the Bible. So a lot of people have misconceptions about it. What it is it's not like a miracle is a bigger magic. No. Magic, and I'm not talking about tricks of like magicians, but I'm talking about like black magic. It's you getting genes to work in the unseen world, what they naturally do. You know, maybe they can change the matter into an energy and then transform it back into that matter. They can move stuff. But since we cannot see this world, and maybe with time, with technology, we'll be able to perceive certain changes, that are happening around the environment to say there's another entity doing something here. But since we cannot perceive this, we think it's a supernatural. Because if you do not move an object and it moves, then you're like, whoa, whoa, but it's just a gene that's doing something that he naturally does in his own world, but we cannot perceive it.